What are some leadership lessons learned over the years? What are the attributes of a great leader? Well, I think first of all, you've got to care about the people that you're leading. It starts and I think ends with the fact that you've got great young people that are going to be working for you. They depend on you for your own leadership, for sustenance, for an appreciation for what it is that they do. You've got to be able to sustain them. You've got to be able to motivate them and all those types of things. I've learned over time that a leader that starts to think that it's about him and not about those people that you lead is invariably going to fail. And even in the Marine Corps, we have at times had to discipline that thought process. Those people stand out fairly dramatically when it happens because that's not the norm, certainly. But leadership is about people, and to the degree that you take care of your people, you're going to have a great organization. I think the military is admired for its leaders because you've got people, first of all, that are dedicated to service to country. And I think there's some of that in all of us. It's just that some take it to the level where they're willing to raise their hand and sign on. Others support the nation in other ways. But I think people do have an appreciation, our countrymen have an appreciation for that 1% that wear the uniform at any one time, that are prepared to go forward, leave their families, lay it all on the line, and do what has to be done. I think it's important that people understand that those leaders are going to take the sons and daughters of this great nation, treat them well, give them the best equipment that they can possibly muster, and then give them good leadership in what are probably going to be some difficult times. Where people see that happen, I think they admire the process, and although there's a level of expectation and accountability where it doesn't occur, I think generally speaking, people see that it happens in the military to a level that they're very satisfied with. I think integrity is probably the single most important leadership trait, although there are dozens of others that have to be, I think, present in a strong leader. I think if you start with integrity, the rest of it will fall into place. The definition of integrity is that, at least the military definition, is that you don't lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. And in that context, it's both about the betterment of the individual, but it's also about the institution. You know, we had an issue at one point with the service academies. Their definition of integrity is you don't rat on your classmates. Well, I'm sorry, that is not for the good of the institution. That's for the good of the dorm room, or perhaps for a couple of buddies, or maybe even a small group. But our definition is dramatically different from that, and we had to sort of pound that into some people early on in their instruction, because again, they simply learned it another way. It goes right to the battlefield. If you have people who are possibly going to shade the truth or say something that might make them look a little better in the eyes of their superiors, but is not absolutely honest with regard to the situation on the ground, people can get killed. People have gotten killed for those very types of things. But it carries through your daily lives and how you handle situations. And to the point that we teach our Marines, officers and enlisted, be brutally honest, explain the situation for what it is, and then we take that problem aboard and we try to solve that problem. It's much better than trying to sweep it under the carpet or dismiss it in some way that is, again, not fully honest and does not reflect that person's integrity. And by the way, your people are watching. And the message, the subtle or the implied message will be, well, if you can sort of shade this to say what you want to say, then I can do the same thing. And my integrity then matches yours, and the whole organization suffers. We call it crisis management or crisis response in the military. And the essence of it is that you need a preordained process. You can't wait until the crisis strikes you and then start looking at various processes to serve as your model. But you need to look at a process that will help you to move through this thing with the time that you have available. Time is the overarching factor here that determines speed of action. And of course, again, as military people, we always wanted to take that worst case and tell ourselves we've got 6 hours to respond to this crisis. And so what is it you can do in this 6-hour period? Now, if you've got more time, that's good. That's a bonus, and you'll take the time you've got to try to solidify the elements of information that you have to have. Probably the most important step in developing this process, though, is to properly identify the problem. I've seen too many times where people launch off on what is a fairly extensive effort or process only to be seizing on the results of a problem, not the problem itself. So take the time up front to decide what is the first step in this problem-solving process, what is the problem, and once you crystallize that, the other things will seem to fall into place. Given the time available, you've got to be able to, I think, assess all the factors that you can bring in. This is where the collaborative effort with your people, your trusted agents, come to play. Depending on how secure the issue may be, it may be a small group. If it's a known problem, you can bring in a lot more talent, I think, and listen to what they have to say. As you glean more information, you'll find out even more things as these people start to open up and you hear things you didn't know before, perhaps, been my experience. But at some point in all of this, you've got to craft what I would call courses of action. What are our ways that we address this problem, and which one will probably lead us most likely down this road to success? You've got to know what are the advantages and the disadvantages with each of those courses of action, because somewhere in there you've got to be able to assess your risk. And are some just too risky? Are others not risky enough because you hope to respond in a bold fashion? But in the end, you will make this choice. The leader will make this choice in terms of which course of action you're going to pursue. And at that point, you've got to drop back and make sure that all your people understand. This is a decision. This is how we will proceed. Now I need all your energies to fall in behind this and help me make it succeed. I think once you've reached that point, you then need to red team it, what we call red team it a little bit, turn it around, look at it in terms of how it's going to be received. How is your adversary, your competition, your enemy going to see what you've just done, and what are his or her probable responses? And in the process, then, you will develop what I would call decision points along the way. You think through these outlying decision points in terms of, okay, when things change, as invariably they will, what do we then do with this course of action? And I think that's a very distilled synopsis, if you will, of the process. It's only one process. There are probably others. But that's how the Marine Corps has approached this, what we call rapid planning or crisis response kind of situation that we have to deal with from time to time, and we've had a good margin of success with it. In my last year or so, we really got focused on expeditionary energy. We had two challenges, really. One was base and station and how we cut costs and become more efficient with regard to developing kinds of techniques and scientific advancement. And we're pretty good there. I would have given us a B+ there. Still some things that we can do. Industry has to help us to make some of our alternate means become more efficient. But where we really focused on, therefore, because the grade wasn't nearly as good, was what we call expeditionary energy. And that is the type of energy. It can be water purification, it can be heating, it can be cooling, it can be what you're running your machines on, it can be how you become more efficient with your computer systems and so forth. But we found that we were not very concerned about that at all, and in the process it was costing the U.S. taxpayer a large amount of money to sustain us in the field, as much or more for Army units in like scenarios. And quite frankly, it was putting young Marines at risk because they had to be on the roads in these convoys, getting this fuel, getting this water, getting this ammunition and so forth to their fellow Marines out in the forward operating bases. So we got very keen on this whole idea of how do you create these things, perhaps even in organic form, so that the next time there's an Afghanistan, that we go there much better prepared to handle the environment, take advantage of sort of the natural resources that piece of terrain, that ground might offer, and in the process, we're just more efficient. In devoting the energy that we did, we suddenly found ourselves pretty much in the lead. As the smallest of the services, we were able to turn that what we call OODA loop faster, I suppose, than the other services. We brought in industry, we sampled their wares, we built a forward operating base at one of our stations here in Quantico to field test it. Those things that continue to pass these tests, we took out to the West Coast. And then we bought some of these things to actually send to Afghanistan, and they're there today. And I will say that they're proving themselves in almost every case, because we thought we had about an 80% solution in the process. So to the degree that we can take the opium harvest from an Afghan farmer and turn that into low-grade diesel, that's a good thing. To the extent that we can take the cooking oils out of the mess deck and turn that into fuel, that's a good thing. To the degree that we can have a solar-operated water purification plant that will satisfy the needs of a rifle company, there's goodness in that. We have actually found ways to even cool our tents by use of a small fan and underground piping, as opposed to having to have fuel to run the generator, to run the air conditioner, to try to pipe into the tent. And you can just see the cost comparison, the efficiency that's gained in that, the weight, and that's a factor for us. All are positive things. So we're keen on this whole idea of advancing the energy effort, but particularly, again, as it relates to expeditionary. Well, my personal metric in terms of how successful a speech is going to be is I think I've got to do 3 or 4 things. One, I think you need to inform. People want to learn something, I believe, from what it is you have to say. And you, in turn, have to feel like you have something that you can present that's going to be worthwhile for the time and the effort that they put into coming to hear you speak. I personally like to inspire people to go do something. And there's lots of things out there as fellow Americans that I think we can do, either in a specific interest or maybe just in terms of what's best for the nation, that I would encourage people at some point in the conversation, in the speech, to accomplish perhaps as a result of it. I think you've got to be light, you've got to be to some degree entertaining. I like to make people laugh, and there are any number of stories that I've experienced over 40 years, I think that can serve that purpose. And if you are sufficiently, I think, what's the right term, emotional in your own presentation, if you are able to glean emotion from your audience, sometimes you make them cry. And in a single speech, I think if a speaker can do all of those things, then he or she has to walk away feeling like that was a pretty good speech.